record this song that we had written for Dee Dee Sharp, who had had the mashed potatoes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
For more than half a century, she's been a musical cornerstone. Carole King's songs are woven into the fabric of millions of lives, a soundtrack for love, loss, and everything in between. She's the voice of comfort, a key architect of the singer-songwriter movement, and a figure of genuine warmth in an industry full of sharp edges. But recently, a story started making the rounds online, a whisper that has grown into a roar. It's a story that claims Carole King, the very emblem of grace, has been holding on to a secret list, a list of names she vowed she'd never forgive. This supposed list, which she has allegedly revealed at the age of 83, is a shocking collection of music royalty. It hints at backstage betrayals, stunning arrogance, and deep-seated rivalries hidden from the public for decades. The names themselves are legendary: Don Henley, Ted Nugent, Linda Ronstadt, Phil Spector, Elton John, and Eric Clapton. The stories paint a picture of a very different Carole King, one who navigated a world of massive egos and collected receipts along the way. It's the kind of bombshell that seems to rewrite music history. A secret blacklist from one of pop's most beloved figures. It's the ultimate untold story. But is any of it true? In an age where a sensational headline can circle the globe in seconds, telling fact from fiction is more critical than ever. The story of Carole King's hate list is dramatic, compelling, and spreading like wildfire. But before we just accept it, we have to ask the hard questions. Where did this list even come from? Who are the sources? And does any of it hold up when you actually look at the facts? This isn't just another video repeating gossip. We're going to take each of the 6 names on this supposed list and check the record. We'll look through interviews, autobiographies, news reports, and concert archives. We're following the evidence to find out what really happened between Carole King and these titans of music. Is this a case of long overdue truth-telling, or one of the most elaborate hoaxes the music world has seen? The answers will almost certainly surprise you. So, let's get into the rumor mill and find the real story. The first name on this so-called explosive list is Don Henley, the unmistakable voice of the Eagles. The rumor that's been flying around is a classic tale of clashing egos, set during a big-name benefit concert in the late 1980s. The story claims that King and Henley were both scheduled to perform at a charity event. The vibe should have been one of unity, but the legend says it was anything but. As the story goes, Henley, riding high on his post-Eagles solo success, started throwing his weight around during rehearsals. He allegedly went up to Carole King, a woman who'd already written a generation's worth of hits before the Eagles even formed, and began micromanaging her. The most outrageous part of the claim is that Henley tried to tell King how to play the piano intros to her own iconic songs, suggesting they sounded too much like his hit. The end of the innocence. The sheer audacity of it is the heart of the drama. The rumored confrontation gets worse. King, a total pro but not someone to be pushed around, was supposedly so furious at Henley's arrogance that she just stopped playing, stood up, and walked out of the rehearsal without a word. And the feud didn't stop there. The story claims that for years King actively dodged Henley, refusing to sit at the same table at award shows and turning down events where she might have to see him. It paints a picture of a deep, lasting bitterness born from one moment of disrespect. It's a very specific and dramatic story. But is it real? We started with the obvious places: Carole King's memoir, A Natural Woman, and Don Henley's many interviews over the years. We looked for any mention of a fight at a benefit concert, any hint of a feud. We found nothing, not a single word, from King or Henley that backs up this dramatic walkout. So we dug deeper, scouring archives of music journalism from the late 80s, Rolling Stone, Billboard, the LA Times. Benefit concerts like that were huge deals and heavily covered. A clash between 2 stars of this size would have left a trace, a comment from another musician, a blind item in a gossip column, something. But again, the historical record is completely silent. There is no credible account of this incident ever happening. The story about Don Henley disrespecting Carole King simply isn't supported by any interviews, memoirs, or reputable journalism. It seems to be a total fabrication. So why make it up? Maybe it just plays on the public perception of the artists. Henley has been described as intense, while King is seen as authentic and easygoing. The rumored clash is a perfect, if fictional, collision of those images. But as for the truth, there's no evidence King ever held a grudge against Don Henley, let alone put him on a secret hate list. Next on the supposed blacklist is someone who couldn't be more different from Carole King. The Motor City madman himself, Ted Nugent. The alleged incident is a clash of genres and personalities. The setting, according to the rumor, was a TV taping in the late 1970s, a time when artists from totally different worlds were often thrown together. The story goes like this. Carole King was in the middle of a quiet, careful sound check for one of her soulful ballads. Suddenly, the piece was shattered by a screaming guitar. It was Ted Nugent, who had supposedly decided to do his own sound check at the same time, unleashing a storm of loud, aggressive solos. King's crew was stunned. When King, trying to keep her cool, asked for a little quiet, Nugent is said to have scoffed into a mic. "This is rock and roll, not a library. Folk music is for grandmas." That quote is the core of the legend. It's a brutal comment that perfectly sums up the cultural gap between King's thoughtful songwriting and Nugent's hard rock showmanship. The story says King was profoundly offended, later telling a friend that Nugent's presence was like a chainsaw in a church. This one incident, supposedly, cemented Nugent in her mind as the embodiment of everything she couldn't stand about the music business. The story is vivid, and it feels plausible because the two artists are such polar opposites. But did it actually happen? We started by looking for any record of Carole King and Ted Nugent, even sharing a bill for a TV show in the late 70s. We checked the records for shows like The Midnight Special and Don Kirshner's rock concert, and couldn't find a single instance of them appearing together. The basic setting of the story is shaky from the start. Next, we searched for those specific quotes. Folk music is for grandmas and a chainsaw in a church are incredibly memorable. If they were real, they'd have been repeated somewhere. We searched countless interviews and biographies. The quotes only appear in recent unsourced internet posts telling this exact story. They have no origin in any credible source. The sound check incident with Ted Nugent, including the music for grandma's quote, is not documented anywhere reputable. It seems to be another invented anecdote. So what's the point of this story? It works as a perfect allegory for the music culture wars of the 70s, the introspective singer-songwriter versus the loud, unapologetic hard rocker. The story creates a dramatic flashpoint for that conflict, but it's pure fiction. There's no evidence Carole King ever had a run-in with Ted Nugent. The chainsaw and the church, in reality, stayed in their separate worlds. The third name on the list is maybe the most surprising: Linda Ronstadt. Unlike Henley or Nugent, Ronstadt was a contemporary, another woman navigating the male-dominated world of 1970s rock. They moved in the same Southern California circles, and you'd expect a sense of camaraderie. Instead, the rumor alleges a bitter, personal rivalry. The story is set at an intimate dinner party in Malibu. According to the tale, another guest was praising Carole King's massive achievement with her album, Tapestry. At that moment, the story claims Linda Ronstadt delivered a devastatingly dismissive comment. Looking right at King, Ronstadt allegedly said something like, "You got lucky with one album." Songwriting is a craft, not a lightning strike. The implication was that King was a one-hit wonder, and her success was a fluke, while Ronstadt saw herself as a more serious, versatile artist. The rumor suggests this comment deeply wounded King and created a silent feud between two of the most powerful women in music. This story taps into a tired narrative of female competition. But is there any truth to it? Once again, our search came up empty. We looked through biographies of both King and Ronstadt and detailed histories of the Laurel Canyon music scene. A public takedown like that between two figures as central as King and Ronstadt would have been a cornerstone anecdote of the era. Yet, it appears nowhere in any of those histories. The alleged rivalry and the dismissive comment are not supported by any public record. The story is a fabrication. In reality, the public record shows mutual respect between them. Ronstadt built her career on interpreting the work of great songwriters, and she held people like King in high regard. The invention of this feud seems to serve a cynical purpose, to create drama by pitting two successful women against each other. But the reality is far less scandalous. The music business is competitive, sure, but the narrative of a deep-seated hatred between Carole King and Linda Ronstadt is baseless. There was no dinner party takedown, just two immensely talented women carving out their own legendary paths. We're halfway through the list, and so far every single story has fallen apart under the slightest scrutiny. It's a powerful reminder of how easily compelling stories can be made up and spread, even with zero evidence. It really makes you wonder what other music myths we've all just accepted as true. If you appreciate this kind of work, separating musical myth from reality, this is a great time to support the channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We have more investigating to do, and you won't want to miss what we find next. Now let's get back to the list. The fourth name on the list is Phil Spector, a figure who casts a much darker and more complex shadow. Unlike the other names, King's connection to Spector was real and foundational. They worked together in her early days at the Brill Building, where she and Jerry Goffin wrote songs for Spector's artists. This real history is what makes the rumor of hatred feel so plausible. The rumor claims King's feelings went far beyond professional disagreements, alleging a deep, personal loathing rooted in Spector's tyrannical behavior. The story often zeroes in on one song, He Hit Me, and It Felt Like a Kiss, which Goffin and King wrote and Spector produced for the Crystals. The narrative suggests King was horrified by Spector's handling of the song, and that this was the final straw, cementing a lifelong hatred. It frames King's supposed hatred as a prescient judgment of Spector's character, long before his conviction for murder. Here, the line between fact and fiction gets blurry. It is true that Carole King has publicly expressed her discomfort and regret over He Hit Me. In her memoir, she's been candid about it, stating she was young and immediately regretted the song, which she now sees as indefensible. It's also well documented that Phil Spector was a notoriously controlling personality. These facts give the rumor its power. However, the leap from professional difficulty and artistic regret to being on a personal hate list is a big one, and it's a leap the evidence doesn't support. While King has acknowledged Spector's difficult nature and her regret about that one song, there's no evidence she maintained a personal vendetta against him. Her reflections have been about a specific regrettable moment and the general toxicity of Spector's methods, not a deep, personal hatred for the man himself. To call her feelings simple hate is to flatten a much more complex reality. King's history with Spector is nuanced. She learned a lot, wrote timeless songs, but also had to navigate a system run by powerful and volatile men. The story of a simple, burning hatred is more dramatic, but Carole King's actual history with Phil Spector isn't a simple story of hate. It's a complicated chapter of her professional youth, one she has reflected on with honesty and grace. The fifth name supposedly on King's blacklist is another global superstar, Elton John. This rumored feud is a tale of a collaboration gone terribly wrong. In the early 70s, both King and John were at the absolute peak of their fame. A collaboration would have been a massive event. According to the story, they actually tried to make it happen. The two allegedly got together in a studio to work on a duet. King sat at the piano and started playing a new song in her signature style, but before she could get far, Elton supposedly stopped her. "No, no, darling," he is said to have declared, before taking over the piano and turning her mellow ballad into a flamboyant, up-tempo number. The breaking point, according to the legend, was a cutting remark from John. "Darling, you've had your moment with the coffeehouse sound. It's my turn to make it interesting." Feeling completely steamrolled, King supposedly packed up her things and walked out, ending any chance of a friendship. It's another fantastic story. It pits two beloved icons against each other and hinges on a perfectly catty, character-defining quote. It sounds almost too perfect. So did this clash of titans actually happen? You'd think a collaboration between Carole King and Elton John in the 1970s would have been huge news. The music press would have been all over it. We searched for any announcement of a planned duet, any studio logs, any interviews where either artist mentioned working with the other. The result? Total silence. There is no record of a planned collaboration ever being scheduled, let alone one that ended so dramatically. The story of the failed duet, including the snarky quote, is entirely unsubstantiated. It appears to be a complete invention. Both artists have spoken of each other over the years with the mutual respect you'd expect. There's no hint of any lasting chill. Like the other stories, this one just plays on public perception. Elton's larger-than-life persona versus King's understated authenticity. The grand collaboration never happened, so the grand falling out couldn't have either. The final name on this phantom list is the legendary guitarist Eric Clapton. This story is different. It's not about arrogance or ego. It's a quieter, more personal story of betrayal, which makes it sound more believable. The rumor claims that King and Clapton, who were friends and had collaborated, were both at a benefit concert. Clapton had notably played guitar on King's 1989 album, The City Streets. Given this history, King supposedly went to say hello backstage, expecting a warm greeting. Instead, she was met with a wall of silence. The story says Clapton looked right, through her, gave a curt nod, and turned his back to talk to someone else. It wasn't a fight. It was a cold, silent rejection that was supposedly more hurtful than any angry words. This quiet betrayal, the story concludes, was something she could never forgive. This anecdote feels different. Its subtlety makes it feel more real. But does that make it true? The key here is their collaboration. It's true that Clapton played on King's album. This establishes a real connection. However, the story of a later cold shoulder is, once again, completely unsupported by any evidence. We found no interviews where King or Clapton speak of any falling out. In fact, their work together is spoken of as a high point, a successful meeting of two great talents. There is simply no evidence for this feud. The anecdote seems to be another invented story, this time designed to create a more subtle, emotional drama. It's an effective storytelling technique, but it has no basis in reality. Their relationship was, and remains, one of professional respect. The story of the backstage snub was likely created to add a different flavor to the fictional hate list, but it's just another ghost. So we've reached the end of the list. 6 legendary names, 6 dramatic stories of betrayal and rivalry, and one unavoidable conclusion: the list isn't real. The claim that, at 83, Carole King finally names 6 artists she hated the most is a complete fabrication. Not a single one of the alleged feuds holds up. There was no blowout with Don Henley, no soundcheck showdown with Ted Nugent, no dinner party drama with Linda Ronstadt, and no failed duet with Elton John. There wasn't even a cold shoulder from Eric Clapton. And while her history with Phil Spector is complex, it's been twisted into a simple story of personal hatred. The entire premise is fiction, cleverly built from public perceptions and music industry drama. These stories are compelling because They offer a dark counterpoint to Carole King's public image of warmth and grace. They create conflict, where in reality there was mostly professionalism. But in debunking this list, we actually find a more interesting truth about Carole King. Her career wasn't defined by feuds, but by the bridges she built with her music. She navigated a tough industry for over 6 decades, not by keeping an enemies list, but by focusing on her craft with integrity. Her real story isn't one of petty grievances, it's one of resilience, groundbreaking art, and an incredible ability to connect with people. The fiction of the hate list makes for a great headline, but the reality of her career is a far better story. A true legend isn't measured by their rivals, but by the music they create and the lives they touch. Carole King's legacy isn't in a secret blacklist. It's in the grooves of records like Tapestry and in the timeless melodies that have become part of our lives. That's the truth, and it's more powerful than any rumor. What does it say about us that we're so drawn to these stories of conflict? And which of these debunked myths surprised you the most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe that fact is always more fascinating than fiction, make sure you're subscribed for more deep dives into music history. Thanks for watching.